The morning sun had barely climbed above the city skyline when a quiet father carrying nothing more than a worn envelope and a lifetime of silent sacrifices stepped into one of the most luxurious banks in town. His shoes were faded, his shirt had been carefully washed so many times that its color had almost disappeared, and his tired eyes carried the weight of years spent choosing his daughter's happiness over his own. People looked at him with the same quick judgment they always had. Then, in a moment that would change countless lives forever, the bank manager grabbed the envelope from his hands, laughed in front of everyone, and threw the check into a metal waste bin before setting it on fire. No one inside that bright, polished building knew they were watching the owner of the entire bank being humiliated in his own lobby. Before this unforgettable story continues, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who still believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories like this to people around the world. Every person has a story that cannot be seen by looking at their clothes. Rowan Mercer had learned that lesson years ago. Since losing his wife during the birth of their daughter, he had lived every single day with quiet determination instead of complaints. He never searched for sympathy. He never blamed life. He simply woke before sunrise every morning, prepared breakfast for his little girl, packed her school lunch with whatever he could afford, and worked wherever honest labor was available. Construction sites, warehouses, delivery routes, night security shifts, he accepted every opportunity because one little smile waiting for him at home made every aching muscle worthwhile. His daughter, Nora, believed her father was the strongest man in the world. She never noticed how often he skipped meals so she could have fresh fruit. She never realized that the winter coat she wore each year meant her father spent another season wearing the same old jacket. Years before anyone knew Rowan as a struggling single father, he had quietly built one of the country's fastest-growing financial institutions. Together with his late wife, he had dreamed of creating a bank that treated ordinary people with dignity instead of seeing them as account numbers. They invested wisely, expanded carefully, and earned the trust of thousands of families. But after his wife's passing, the success that once inspired him only reminded him of the life they had planned together. The endless meetings, expensive suits, and public attention felt empty without her. Instead of selling the company, Rowan transferred daily operations to a professional executive team while secretly placing the ownership under a confidential trust. Only a handful of senior legal advisors knew the true owner. Rowan disappeared from public life, choosing instead to raise Nora away from headlines and privilege. The directors believed the mysterious owner preferred privacy, so no one questioned his absence. Years passed, and success slowly transformed the culture inside the bank. Compassion gave way to profit. Humility was replaced with appearances. Employees were rewarded for impressing wealthy clients while ordinary customers were often ignored. Among those employees was Victor Langford, the ambitious regional manager whose polished smile hid an enormous ego. Victor loved expensive watches, tailored suits, and reminding everyone about his authority. He believed respect came from power instead of character. Whenever someone entered the branch looking poor, he immediately assumed they had nothing to offer. That warm Tuesday morning, Rowan walked toward the bank carrying an official dividend check issued by the corporate trust. He had delayed collecting it for months because money meant very little to him compared to time with Nora. The payment represented profits that legally belonged to him as majority owner. His legal advisor had encouraged him to cash it personally because updated ownership documents also required his signature. Rowan smiled quietly as he entered the building, thinking more about picking Nora up from school later than about the enormous amount written on the check. Inside the elegant lobby, polished marble floors reflected sunlight pouring through towering glass windows. Customers dressed in expensive business clothing chatted comfortably while soft music played in the background. Rowan patiently waited in line, holding the envelope carefully. A young teller glanced at his worn appearance before whispering something to another employee. Within moments, Victor noticed the exchange and confidently walked across the lobby. Without asking respectful questions, Victor assumed Rowan was attempting some kind of fraud. He demanded to see the envelope. Rowan politely handed it over, believing it was part of normal banking procedure. The moment Victor unfolded the check and saw the unbelievable amount, he laughed loudly. Instead of checking the official verification codes printed across the document, he declared that no poor man could possibly possess such a check. Several customers turned to watch. Phones quietly appeared as people sensed public embarrassment unfolding. Victor continued insulting Rowan's appearance, claiming the document was obviously stolen or fake. Rowan calmly requested that the verification department examine the security markings, but Victor refused to listen. Determined to make an example of him, the manager walked to a decorative metal waste container near the customer service desk. Before anyone fully understood what he intended to do, he tossed the check inside and dropped a lit match onto the papers already resting there. Thin flames quickly climbed across the envelope. Gasps echoed throughout the lobby as the official financial document curled into black ash. Rowan stood perfectly still. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply watched the fire with quiet sadness. The silence unsettled everyone more than anger ever could. Victor mistook that silence for defeat. Security guards approached Rowan and politely escorted him toward the exit while curious customers whispered that he must have deserved it. Outside, the warm daylight felt strangely peaceful. Rowan looked back at the building his wife had once imagined as a place where every customer would be treated with equal respect. For the first time in years, disappointment settled heavily inside his heart. Instead of leaving in anger, Rowan called the legal office managing the ownership trust. He calmly explained everything that had happened. The attorney listening on the other end became completely silent before promising immediate action. Rowan thanked him, ended the call, and walked to Nora's school just as classes finished. When she ran into his arms with her bright smile and excited stories about science class, every trace of bitterness disappeared from his face. She deserved a father who carried peace home instead of frustration. Meanwhile, panic had already begun spreading through corporate headquarters. The legal office contacted the board of directors with urgent instructions. Emergency meetings were scheduled. Archived ownership files were retrieved from secure vaults. Senior executives who had never personally met the mysterious owner suddenly discovered that he had visited one of their own branches and been publicly humiliated. Surveillance footage was requested immediately. Victor remained completely unaware. He proudly described the incident to co-workers, believing he had protected the bank from fraud. Several employees congratulated him without knowing the truth. Others felt uneasy after watching the quiet dignity Rowan displayed while being insulted. Something about the man's calm expression refused to leave their minds. The following morning, luxury vehicles began arriving outside the branch before opening hours. Directors, attorneys, compliance officers, and senior executives stepped inside wearing expressions far more serious than anyone had ever seen. Employees exchanged nervous glances as the entire management team assembled in the conference room. The surveillance video played without interruption. No one spoke. Every insult. Every assumption. Every careless laugh. Every second of the burning check. Everything had been recorded. Finally, the chief legal counsel placed a thick folder on the table containing sealed ownership documents. One by one, the directors opened the files until the final page revealed the verified identity of the bank's founder and majority owner. Rowan Mercer. The room fell into complete silence. Victor's confident smile disappeared instantly. His face turned pale. His hands began trembling. Only then did he understand that the humble father he had mocked owned not only the destroyed check but the building itself, every branch across the country, and the institution that had provided Victor with his career. Within hours, official disciplinary procedures began. Victor was dismissed immediately for gross misconduct, destruction of legal financial documents, abuse of authority, and violation of customer dignity policies. Yet Rowan requested that no public humiliation fall upon him. He believed consequences should teach, not destroy. That single request surprised everyone more than the revelation of his identity. A few days later, Rowan agreed to attend a special board meeting. This time he entered through the same front doors wearing the same simple clothes. Employees who had ignored him before now stood respectfully. Some lowered their heads in embarrassment. Rowan noticed their discomfort but offered gentle smiles instead of resentment. As he walked through the lobby, he paused near the metal waste bin where the check had been burned. The ashes were long gone, but the memory remained. Looking around at the employees, Rowan quietly explained that buildings become successful because of trust, not marble floors. Customers remember how they are treated long after they forget interest rates or account balances. Wealth can disappear overnight, but kindness creates loyalty that lasts generations. His words reached hearts that corporate training manuals never could. Over the following months, Rowan personally introduced new standards across every branch. Employees were evaluated not only by financial performance but also by compassion, patience, honesty, and respect. Staff members received training reminding them that every customer might be carrying invisible burdens. Scholarship programs were created for children of single parents. Emergency assistance funds helped families facing medical crises. Financial education workshops became free for struggling communities. The bank slowly transformed back into the dream Rowan and his wife had once shared. Victor struggled after losing his position. Pride had blinded him for years, but unemployment forced painful reflection. Several months later, he wrote Rowan a sincere letter accepting responsibility without excuses. Rowan quietly helped him find work through another company willing to give deserving people a second chance. Forgiveness did not erase consequences, but it opened the door for redemption. Nora continued growing into a compassionate young girl who admired her father's humility far more than his success. She often accompanied him during community events, watching him greet janitors with the same warmth he showed executives. Whenever she asked why everyone respected him so deeply, Rowan simply told her that the richest people are not those who own the most, but those who leave others feeling valued. Years later, employees still shared the story of the ordinary-looking father whose check had been burned. New hires learned it during orientation as a reminder that appearances reveal almost nothing about a person's true worth. Customers noticed the difference too. Complaints decreased. Trust increased. The bank earned recognition not just for profits but for humanity. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with friends and family, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad so more people can discover stories that remind us compassion is stronger than judgment. Special request: comment below with the words, "Kindness always wins," if you believe every person deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter how they look. As another bright afternoon sun filled the city with golden light, Rowan walked hand in hand with Nora through a nearby park instead of sitting in a luxurious office. Children laughed across green fields while birds sang from tall trees. He had everything money could buy, yet the greatest treasure remained the small hand holding his own. The burned check had long been replaced, the manager had learned a painful lesson, and the bank had rediscovered its soul. In the end, the greatest victory was never proving who owned the bank. The greatest victory was proving that true greatness belongs to those who remain humble when they have every reason not to be. Sometimes the world judges people by worn shoes, faded shirts, or empty wallets. But life has a remarkable way of revealing that the richest hearts are often hidden beneath the simplest appearances, and kindness will always outshine pride.